Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Play Aurora 4X C#. Let me, 1 second, get my timer up and ready to go. So, last time the game decided to throw us a bit of a curveball. We turned on the last of the spoiler races. We didn't run into those guys. Instead, we just had a fairly sizable invasion force from the Raiders pop up. And we're not exactly in a position to deal with them. It's kind of our issue. So, yeah. Kind of need to try to deal with that now. One of our issues is that we do not have much in the way of maintenance supplies. Certainly is not helping us. We managed to sort of shoo off what I'm hoping is like the last of that invasion force. You know, when they got here to waypoint 2, we just kind of did a 5-day increment, and that sent them flying way out into wherever the hell they flew out to. And so far, they have yet to decide to come back. The reality is they should have long since came back if they were intending to do so, and yet they're not. So I think we can relatively safely say that they do not plan to come back. At least, not immediately. Okay. We are still ever so slowly attempting to build our gateway, or, well, stabilize all the jump points that we need to stabilize to get to Epsilon Indy. We are halfway there now. Which means probably like another 3 parts, depending upon what the game throws at us. Okay, wonderful. Those guys, our diplomatic, or our shipyard that was building our diplomatic ships has finished. We're going to go ahead and have them retool for the Block 2 version. That'll finish in February. Because we're going to go and check out on the aliens in GL Virginis. We haven't really touched on them at all. You know, we met them, we ran away, and that was about the extent of our interactions. Still don't have a breathable atmosphere on Mars, which is certainly not surprising. I mean, I only have like 5 things there, and I believe that version only has, yeah, the 1 terraforming module, so they're fairly small. Of course, that's partly because these were designed relatively early on, and we didn't have exactly great tugs, so I didn't want to make the stations too big, because the bigger the station, the tug is going to lose more of its max speed. So, because we weren't going to have a particularly fast tug at the time, unless I made it absolutely massive, and I wasn't interested in making a massive tug. Our current terraforming stations are not that great. We have new ones that we wish to build at some point, which are quite a lot larger, doing a fairly significant amount more in terms of terraforming progress per year. The big question is just whether or not there's a diminishing returns, which I assume there is. Because with 1, we go from 0.001 to 0.0019. And if we add a third one, 0.0029. So unless it's a case of It's rounding up, maybe? But then it doesn't consistently round up. Because there's no reason that the single one should be 3 after the decimal. And yet you add a second one and suddenly it's 4. What are the rounding rules where that would make sense? But either way, I haven't quite decided if we're going to do just 2 or 3. It's a fairly significant jump in size because it's 25,000 per module. So 2 is double. Effectively, it would be the equivalent to having 10 terraforming stations of our current version. Well, we're probably just going to go with the 2. But we'll see. It partly depends upon how large the tug ends up being. Or, well, rather, how good our tugs end up being once we get around to doing these new ones. We're holding out until July of next year. That is when we will get some better labs. Or, well, not better labs, but better maintenance production, rather. Speaking of maintenance production, let's finish off the carrier strike group in terms of maintenance supplies. It's going to be a while until I have all of the missiles that we need. Okay, how much do I have left? 200. That is definitely not going to be enough for Quick Reaction Force 1. So just go ahead and wait a couple more months. We continue, obviously, attempting to get our okay, there we go. We finished building all of the production modules. That should fairly significantly improve our production. We are up to 50,000 a year, which is okay. Do I try to send the salvage fleet out now? Because we're not picking up the remnants yet. But I can tell you they're there. There is absolutely zero reason to believe that they do not exist. But I'm going to do it. Salvage fleet. Rex. I really don't care too much about the order in which you do them, so just do them like this, from top to bottom. Enjoy, and try not to run into any enemies. Because I'd rather not lose you if we can avoid it. More ground units being finished. I have 2,000. I think that's still not quite enough to get all of our guys back up in terms of maintenance supplies. Why did the game pause this time? I honestly don't know. I have absolutely zero idea as to why the game... Is it because of the tech download? It has to be because of the tech download. That's the only thing that makes any sense. Because nothing else makes any sense as to why the game would be pausing. This time I understand. Shipyard modified would certainly pause the game. Where the hell is this salvage fleet, actually, anyway? Are they... okay, they're taking care of the Dorils right now, so they're close in. Also, I think you guys should have enough in terms of space to actually fit all these wreckages. I mean, you have a fair few freighters with you. Okay, that, I believe, should be enough for you to finally get the maintenance supplies you need. And for some reason, you guys have gone down again. But we're still waiting on the missiles. I think you can load I think you can load ordnance and you'll be fine. Yep. We have, what is it, like 200? 200 to 300 left? Yeah. A little over 200. That should be just enough for one of you guys. And then we still have to wait a little bit. Oh, maybe not. Did I get my math wrong? Yes, I did. Yes, because it's 150-ish. It's like 156 for the guided missile destroyers. And then 100 for the guided missile cruiser. So yeah, we still have a little bit of a ways to go there. But that shouldn't take too long. I mean, we build missiles relatively quickly. Okay, first tug group is finished. Head here. Stabilize the other side. You go through, stabilize that one. Oh, I actually have an explorer here. I thought okay. Oh wait, no, yeah, the explorer's fine. Never mind. It's the diplomacy ship that we redesigned at the end of the last part and then did the refits. Oh, Mars changed its dominant terrain, and I pressed the wrong one. I saved. That's not what I meant to press, but that's fine. What I meant to press was this to read it. Mars has changed from tundra to subarctic. And it does now finally have at least a breathable atmosphere. Wonderful. Temperatures are still not quite where we would want them. Let's see. Yeah. The moon is fine. Mars still has a bit of a ways to go, but that'll get sorted out over time. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on. Salvage fleet still has, yeah, salvage fleet has more than enough free space left. We've got a few too many freighters, I'll admit, in the salvage fleet. But honestly, I'd rather them have too much as opposed to too little. Did I not tell you to go back to Earth? I did not tell you to go back to Earth. That is my bad. Unload all ship components, unload all minerals. Okay, and I know you guys were giving me a bunch of stuff regarding cloaking. I don't really care for because I don't plan to use it at all. At least not right now. Maybe in the future, but probably not, because the reality is anything under like 500, there is absolutely zero reason to bother. Because anything under 500 is going to have, I think it's pretty sure it's 500. If I recall correctly, it's like 500 tons. Excuse me. It's more accurately like 50, but nonetheless. The reality is that I cannot design a ship that is anywhere near small enough to really be able to take advantage of cloaking. Like, it would have to have ludicrous range weapons to be able to do that. So, I don't really care for the cloaking. About the only reason why we research it sometimes is just because the game's giving us free progress towards it. And sometimes I just don't have something else that I think is immediately better to research. So I just kind of say, screw it. Let's research this thing. Unlike in other games, of course, it doesn't get it out of the research screen because it just means now I have the next level that I can research. And it'll keep being that way until we get to whatever tech level for cloaking the raiders are at. Eventually, they will not be able to supply me with relevant tech anymore. Okay, wealth generation I don't really care for. I think we're going to go for the construction project and switch and put Flavio in charge. And then I have 10 labs left over. Let's go ahead and put those into the EM sensor sensitivity because I am considering designing some brand new active sensors to go with the refits that we are planning to do. And not just refits, maybe finally looking into getting out brand new designs. Again, I am looking at these things and saying I would love to get them out, even if it's only to sort of test how smaller missile volley sizes that are being fired fairly consistently will compare. But I'm still trying to sort out getting the engine power because they are quite a bit bigger than our current stuff. Because normal missile launchers like this are significantly heavier than box launchers. As you can see, it is 60 tons per of our box launchers, compared to 400 tons for a regular size 8 reloadable missile launcher. And that's not even taking into account the fact that I'm going to have a couple thousand tons of magazine. So, still trying to sort this out. But at some point, the plan is to potentially switch to these types of missiles. Just need to figure out what'll work. And then, of course, how many missiles I want them to have. You know, that's always another question as well. This one would be able to carry 198 missiles right now. That is significantly more missiles than our current guided missile destroyers can carry, because our current ones can only carry 52, because that's all the box launchers they have. And you cannot reload box launchers outside of planetary orbit or something that has a hangar. And I think there's something else that allows it as well, but as a general rule of thumb, planets and hangars are like the only way to do it. Maybe a mobile repair bay. I don't know off the top of my head. Or a maintenance module might also. I think maintenance modules can do it as well. These effectively act like hangars, but their sole reason for existence is to enable maintenance use cases. Particularly for larger ships, you would potentially use this for a station. It's no good reason to necessarily design a station in this game. All things considered, it really isn't. The sheer cost of a station is just not worth it. Okay, you guys need to have your orders re-given to you. Unload all minerals. Refuel, resupply. Cycle. Create template. It's... How many automated mines do I have up? 100 on Earth. Wonderful. Let's go ahead and get started on getting SciSeti A1 going, so that we can get access to that sweet, sweet galsite that it has crappy availability of. The germanium is also kind of nice, but it's not strictly necessary because I have a ludicrous amount of it available on Venus. And Venus has better accessibility. But I'll take the sweet, sweet galsite. Because another thing that we're looking into in the future, not necessarily right now, is designing some new missiles. Largely to go with the brand new cruisers and destroyers that we're looking at designing. Obviously, the missile-carrying variety. Because, hey, if they're going to have smaller, salvos, I probably want to have the missile be able to switch targets if the target it's currently going for gets destroyed. So, yeah. That is something that we are looking into. Let's go ahead and get a brand new diplomacy ship out, though, so we can send it out to GL Virginis. I think it's fast enough to outrun those guys. I'll double check the next time. I'll double check the next time the game pauses, which there we go. GL Virginis. The max speed we've observed you guys going is a little around 8,500. Did I get you above that? Yes, got you to 87. So, unless they've significantly improved their tech, which they probably have, we should be able to outrun these things. Also, we don't know what their size is, but I'm going to be honest, considering how fast they were for relatively early tech, they might be fighters or potentially fast attack craft at about 1,000-ish tons or so. Maybe 2,000. Because the reality is, if we look back at our first fighter, it wasn't really that far above 10,000. And it has a fairly sizable energy signature. You had a thermal sensor signature of about 1,700. We have... So, that is... Where's thermal? Yeah, so thermal of 28. 101. 102. 105, and then 98 for that one, if we go with it. Look back at some of our early destroyers, they were sitting around 600-ish. Yeah, this is something with like a massive frickin' engine on it. Not even in terms of size, but I just mean in terms of engine boost. That's how it's achieving that speed. Especially for a military craft. Because if we look at like our original transports, it's got a thermal signature of 500, 5,000 once you take into account the fact that it has 10 of these engines, and each of them is 500. And it is straight up additive. That is new engine, I believe. Which is certainly nice because we're gonna potentially be skipping the one that I currently have some engine designs using. Yes, that looks like that's a new engine. It is the solid core antimatter drive. Which begs the question, if I swap out you, that is a significant speed increase. Holy crap. We go from 83, and the only change is swapping out the engine, to 106,000 kilometers a second. Now, thing is, I'm probably going to go ahead and say, oh no, I've already got the size 10 strength warhead because we have the Cobalt warheads. I like this. We're going to update all these real quick. That goes to from 93 to 119. Also a fairly decent improvement there. Yes, this was the other potential buoy design that I hadn't quite decided which one we were going to do yet. And I still don't quite know which one we're going to do. But we'll figure that out at some point. But yes, these are very fast, and you really don't need to be that fast, to be completely honest. You really don't. If I slap a full-size active sensor on this, you only go up to about 9 million kilometers, so it's not really that big of an improvement. Well, we'll figure that out over time. In the meantime, let's figure out what we want to research next. We've been improving our EM sensors, but we should probably, improve the passives as well, or the thermals as well. So let's go ahead and get that tech going along as well for when we do get around to actually designing a brand new version of our passive sensors. EM is important because it's a nice, relatively free way to improve your sensor range for active sensors. Because it does play a part. Whoops. Nope, I want you to do this one. Jump point 3. You go through and you do that one. This is Sigma Eridini. Very close. Very, very close. We might actually manage to get it this part. Just depends on what else happens, because we still got about half my timer left. Okay, we have finished with our size 8 missiles. So let's get the size 4s going, which we don't really need that many, to be completely honest, as it turns out. So just do, whoops. Just do 50 of those. And it's, what, like 640 more of these? Unless my math is way off, but that seems about right. Also, scrap this stuff. Ooh, size 20s. Damn, damn, guys. Who the hell was using the size 20s? I mean, seriously, who was using the size 20s? Because that, not a fan of that in the slightest. That had to have been the drills, right? Annoyingly, the game doesn't tell me size here. It just says railgun. I'm going to be honest. This is a personal preference of mine. Rather than saying just railgun, if I know what size the railgun is, tell me the size somewhere in here as well. But since those are 4x4s, those have to be the 20s. So the drills and the Tekkas have the 4x4s. The Yayaks have the 10 centimeters. There is an absolute ludicrous number of these things still out here. And I would... Yes. Oh, whoops, I didn't... That's not the one I wanted to do. I wanted to remove all of the ships that have been destroyed, but oh well, whoopsie daisy. I kind of sort of cleared the data we had on it. It's really not that big of a deal, though, to be honest. They have not changed in the slightest. will live. Well, I say that. I'm pretty sure they have not changed at all, but we didn't have a particularly great experience when we initially attempted to engage them way back when. So, yeah, but I'm pretty sure they've not changed at all. Yeah, Alpha Centauri mineral group has some serious problems when Earth is very close to the jump point. I was talking previously about stations not really being worth it, and then I just kind of trailed off into something else. The reason why stations generally aren't worth it is that you can only really have them over planets that have some sort of some sort of maintenance production capability, unless you want to be constantly shipping out maintenance supplies, because they're just like ships. If you design a military station, it's going to have deployment time. It's going to have just periodic random failures. And so you're going to have to get some maintenance supplies over there or be producing them locally. And that's just, they're very expensive to build, and quite frankly, the management of that generally is not worth it. Um, Considering that you can achieve the same basic effect of defending your planets by just having STOs. It's the whole reason they exist. And of course, if you go to the game forums, you'll have people debating. Oh, if you build STOs as resources you could have used to build ships, and ships would, they're mobile. Sure. But STOs, I can just plop down on a planet and just kind of leave them be. Can't really do the same with a ship. The ship has to have some sort of base of operations. And guess what happens when you have a base of operations? It's not necessarily where you need the ships. So the ship is not necessarily going to be where you need it at all times. So I'm of the belief that STOs are worth it. Just for the simple reason that you're not always going to be able to have the ships right where you want them. So let's take care of yet another Tekka that decides to try and attack Alpha Centauri. Now it decided to try and peace out, but you got too close, buddy. Salvage fleet. Turns out there's actually a couple of wreckages over here for you. So go ahead and take care of that stuff. And that was apparently 102 impacts. Damn. It's quite a few impacts. Which also indicate that time they actually were accurate. Because each planet has... how many? Each planet has... excuse me. 20, and each of them are 4 shots each. So that's a maximum Of what? 200? No, 160. Yeah. Yeah, of 160 shots. Big thing is I really would love to get that rate of fire down. That's the biggest thing I would like to do if I were to design a new STO, would be to get that rate of fire down. So the question is, do I potentially do that now? Or do we hold off? Because the current ones are fine. Unless the enemy sends a bunch of ships. Then it's not so fine. Personally, I would love to get them down to the 5 seconds if we could, but it looks like that is not quite doable. I can get down to 10 with the same thing I have now. And I would still gain range. 100,000 kilometers of range. And have a 5-second faster rate of fire. Which should help us deal with them quite a bit faster. But we could also go up to a 30 centimeter, have more range than our fire control currently allows, but that can be fixed relatively easily. Still have the same 15-second reload, but because we would have basically double the max range, we'd be able to at least fire on them sooner. Thing is, the power requirements for a 30 centimeter railgun firing 4 shots per is absolutely ludicrous. At a power requirement of 21, I don't even think you can get the recharge rate that high. I think the recharge rate might cap out at like 15. I could be wrong about that, but I think it might cap out at like 15. So that is just not happening, game. Now, if I can get up to 11, I can bring it back down to 10 seconds. But I'll be honest, in many ways, I'd probably just stick with a 25 centimeter railgun. It's more than acceptable, and hey, at least I get an extra 100,000 kilometers of range if I were to design this right now. And again, I can get the fire rate down. So I get sort of the best of both worlds. I get a little bit extra range, and I get to fire a little bit faster. But we might hold off on that, because our STOs, again, the current ones are fine. They're doing their job. It's really the simplest way to describe it. They are doing their job. So there's no immediate rush. But maybe in the future we'll look into replacing the STOs again. The main reason why we replaced them before was because the enemy was able to get close enough to fire on them, which we don't want. But that's no longer a problem. Wonderful. Go here. This is WX, so I'm going to have you take care of WX. You are going to go through, and then you're going to take care of Iota. Some beam fire control. And some outdated ECM. Got one tech that's almost done. There we go. Put the last couple of labs that we need there. And yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and get that next generation of beam fire control. Which is going to take a little bit because this guy is not that great. Do I got somebody who's better? I got Herbert here. He's got a significantly lower bonus, but he has more labs. By a little over double. Right now, you're lower though. At about 8,000 per year. Well, Dylan here at least manages 13. So I think we're going to stick with Dylan. But once we're done with the EM sensors, Kang is going to probably take over and replace Dylan. And I think we're going to go and research better ordnance production. Oh, god damn, that's expensive. Never mind. I was thinking we would go and research the next level of ordnance production, but it is very, very expensive at 150,000, and I can't quite justify that. Instead, I think we're going to research tricobalt warheads. At least get started on it. But we're going to put Elizabeth in charge, however, because she has 30 labs as opposed to Anatoly's 20. She does have a slightly lower bonus at 20% as opposed to 30%, but honestly, I think the extra 10 labs more than make up for it. Once she has the labs, because obviously she doesn't right now. And she won't be getting them for a while. Looks like May is when the construction production finishes, unless I build more labs, which I should probably do, realistically. We got a lot of stuff we got to research, so building more labs is probably better. Next time the game pauses, we will queue up maybe 50 more research labs. I think that sounds reasonable. Yeah, I'm thinking that sounds reasonable. Although it's going to be a little bit until the game pauses, because we don't really have anything that's causing a pause. Yeah, not much is going on right now. What is the colony fleet doing? Why are they trying to unload colonists on Earth? What the absolute hell is that? Did your guys' orders get all kinds of screwed up? Yes, they did. Do we need... Well, for one, do you guys actually have anyone on you? No, you don't. Okay. Do I need to send people anywhere? Because I don't think I do. Now, Mars has more workers than it has jobs. That seems to be the story everywhere. So, yeah, no, we don't need to have the colony ships doing anything right now. Which that might speed up the game a little bit as well, because the game's not constantly trying to have them unload when they apparently don't have any, and I don't know why the game wasn't catching that. Usually the game does a pretty decent job of saying, yeah, no, they can't do that order. But it seems that for some reason it absolutely failed at that this time. Wonderful. Alpha Centauri, Lalande, New Scorpius, FL Virginis. I think it's Omega Ceti, and then Geo Virginis. We don't know where they are in here. We just know that this is where they are. Yeah, we don't know where their planet is. We'll have to figure that out once we get there, of course. And this is assuming that they've not built up the system further from the last time we visited. 50 years ago, almost. Because it was certainly a ways back. Oh, we didn't, yes, that would certainly put a bit of a hamper on things. We didn't stabilize this side, so we can't even go there. Let's correct that. How long is it going to take you to get out there? 25 days. And then it'll be a couple months. Like 5 months. I think it is. 4 or 5, one of the two. That should be the Syseti mineral group ready to go. I'm going to give you guys new orders. Have we gotten any of the... Yes, we have some of the stuff there, so... Yes, delete that template. Because we are needing to redo it. Okay, so once you jump into here, you're going to go to B1, A1, A2, Sol, Earth. Unload. Whoops. You guys aren't actually picking shit up. That's certainly a problem. Load, Earth, here, unload, refuel, resupply, cycle, create template. Okay. Were they not picking stuff up before? Oh, God. Yeah, they may not have been picking stuff up before. So, yeah, that's a thing that we apparently did. Iota. Do this side. Go through. You do Epsilon Indy. Looks like we probably won't actually get the Epsilon Indy jump point stabilized on both sides this part. Depends a little bit on how quickly that 6 months go by. Okay, construction rate finished, and I forgot to go ahead and add the research lab, so let's go and do that now, 50. Add you here, any new ones that we get go there. That'll be done December of some year in the future. June, we will get the next level of EM sensors, and I think that is going to be considered adequate for my needs for now. When it comes to looking into designing off-screen, of course, because it's easier. Our next generation active sensor suite, which is still going to consist of a long, a medium, and a short range. Jesus, did you guys know? You guys didn't finish that quickly. Somebody died. Who died? Somebody died, game. I know somebody died. Somebody was researching something, because there's no other explanation as to why. Yes, the dude who was researching the next level of armor technology. Well, they didn't die, they retired. As far as I'm concerned, same difference. Okay. Luckily, we had somebody available to take their space almost exactly as is. Okay, and that's the EM sensors done, and one of the labs finished. Yes, it'd be 5 months right now. This will get us down to 4 months. But do I go for the additional maintenance production? Flavio's the best guy for researching that kind of stuff. Holy crap, 40% bonus. Hell yeah, no, you keep researching that, Vasya. You are absolutely wonderful at that. Ooh, Kang, yes, Kang. You are supposed to be taking over the beam fire controls. That leaves me with 11 free labs. If I was actually building point defense systems, max tracking time for bonus versus missiles would certainly be something I would want to research. This bonus will allow increased tracking speeds for beam fire controls engaging missiles based on the length of time the target has been continually tracked on active sensors. But I don't really have a use for it. We are gonna, I think, want to get the better fire control speed rating. Especially if we decide to engage or invade GL Virginis, because those guys, as we've seen, their older stuff was fairly fast. So we're gonna have Dylan get started on that. But again, Dylan is not that great. Missile launcher reload rate. I think we're going to go for this. So, Anatoly, go and start researching that. Any new labs that get built will get assigned to you. Because I would certainly love to cut down the reload rate, or, the time it takes to reload our missile launchers, if we do end up making the switch to reloadable missile launchers, or to, reloadable tubes. Which, it should be noted, the difference is basically that the reloadable tubes are, you can think of them more like a torpedo, in a sense. They're going to, obviously, yeah, fire smaller salvos. That's the big thing. I can't do as much of mass volley fire from a single ship as I can with the box launchers. But the reality is, I don't think there will be a perceptible difference in terms of combat effectiveness. And it will result in a significant improvement in how long our fleet can stay engaged. The Raiders, as far as we've seen, do not have any sort of point defense system. Theoretically, you can use railguns to engage missiles. I don't know how well it works, but theoretically you can do it. Why are there wreckages of some of their stuff game? Did they get attacked by? They probably got attacked by raiders when I had the raiders set up to attack the AI. I think they were around Virginis 3, but let's actually just real quick double check because this will tell us. Well, it's certainly not 3 because that is not a habitable world. It is a gas giant. It is probably 2 because that has alpine grasslands, tons of liquid, nitrogen and oxygen, a fairly decent temperature. I believe the AI has more or less the same rules as us when it comes to habitability. Um, for the most part, like it's not these exact numbers, but I do realize that their numbers I think are still relatively close to ours. So this, I believe, is where they are. So we're going to go ahead and have you fly out to Geo Virginis 2. You're going to stay initially. I'm going to have you hang out a million out. Found them. There's some new fancy toys. So change of plans. We're going to hang out. God damn, how are we already picking you up? I'm curious because... Oh. Because you have a GPS of 22,000. Those things have some ludicrous... either active sensors or something else. Because GPS is their basic electromagnetic signature. You know, here it's denoted as an EM. So whatever the hell it is, has just way too much stuff, and it's probably got active sensors on. That's one of the reasons why we're picking them up, presumably. So we're already picking you up, and we are like 100 and that doesn't seem right at all. But it is. We're like 139. We're just going to round and say 140 million kilometers out. We're already picking you up. I don't know what kind of weapon systems you have, which is kind of the problem. If you have long range missiles, I don't think we can do this. I'm going to try to have you maintain your current distance. Maybe get just a tad bit closer at 130 million kilometers, just a tad, not too much. We are communicating, evidently, because it says communication attempts did occur. However, they are stalled because they are refusing to exchange information. Okay, they're flying away from us, evidently, which is a little surprising. We're going to let Spark go a bit longer because I'm curious as to what the hell we're going to see when we catch up to... Okay, they're turning around to come back at us. And we lost them. They did not jump through because the jump ship is not under attack. That's how we know that. They are still out there on this side. Let's try going back. Found them. Well, miraculously, the rest of them. And it's not big stuff this time. God, how far out can I stay from these guys, though? That's the question. Because again, I don't know what their weapon systems are. If they have missiles, we're probably well within weapons range. I can tell you that right now. If they don't have missiles, then 1 million kilometers is probably fine. And they have missiles. They have missiles. God, okay. So this results in a change of plans. For those of you that don't know, the best way to deal with missiles, generally speaking, are Gauss cannons in turrets. However, turrets are a bit pricier. Now, there are multiple ways to defend yourself from missiles. Like I said, Gauss cannons in turrets are generally the best. Your other option, well, your other options are lasers in turrets or a Sea-Whiz. Now, the difference between a Sea-Whiz and a Gauss turret is that a Sea-Whiz doesn't have that much range. It is, well, very similar to a Sea-Whiz in the real world, where it's kind of a last-ditch effort. Oh shit, none of our other anti-missile systems functioned. Let's use this thing. So this doesn't have any, like, range listed on it. Presumably the range is determined by this, the beam fire control range, but I don't know that for certain necessarily. Because again, the game doesn't actually say, but I kind of get the feeling the reality is, because overall size decreases the higher up I bring the beam fire control, is that it only has a range of 20,000 kilometers. But that, you know, I can save weight and maybe slap more Sea-Whizzes. I say Sea-Whizzes. It's obviously not a Sea-Whiz because it's a CIWS, and if it was a Sea-Whiz, technically it would be a CWIS. But nonetheless, I've always just heard them referred to as Sea-Whiz, even though it makes no sense that a close-in weapon system is referred to as a Sea-Whiz. Completely ignore that. But yeah, so these are not that great. So if we really want to defend ourselves, we're going to have to look into Gauss cannons and getting turrets. That means improving our research in Gauss cannons. The advantage of Gauss cannons is that they are not purely a single ship's defensive mechanism. They can defend the fleet. Because in this game, as a reminder, for those of you guys that haven't caught on, your fleet is literally that dot. There is no like formation system. Your fleet is this single dot. The more ships you have in it, the more weapons and various systems and capabilities you have. There is no micromanaging the individual assets in a battle. So as a result of that, if you have, like, for lack of a better way to describe them, picket ships whose sole job is to serve as a point defense screen, it doesn't matter where they would technically be in the fleet, they have the same range. Because as far as the game is concerned, they are this single dot, and everybody's range is based around that single central dot. So looks like if we want to invade GL Virginis, we're going to have to design a brand new type of ship. Because I do not think I can justify the size requirements. Well, not the size. What's the best way to describe it? The resource cost of actually putting turreted Gauss cannons on the existing ships, because it would just increase the size too much. So I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go down here, see, do they already exist or no? No, really, that is, wow. There's point defense base, which makes 0 sense unless I was building stations, but it's a little surprising that there is not like a point defense ship or a picket ship or something. Because this is alphabetical order based upon the name, not the, like fleet or ship class designation. So, surprisingly, there is not this. What I think we're going to do is we're going to make our picket ships frigates. That's what we're going to refer to them as. It's not strictly accurate in any sense, but I think that's the easiest way to refer to them. It is distinct. We do not have like a picket ship or a point defense destroyer or anything like that. The closest thing we have to a point defense in the name of anything is the point defense base, which, again, does not make sense for a ship. So, yeah. Could do Corvette as well if I wanted to, but no, we're going to go with Frigate. I kind of prefer Frigate over Corvette, personally. So, what do we name these guys? Klingons? Nah. Well, that could be fun. We're not going to name after Klingons. Do we have frigates anywhere out of curiosity? No. Light cruisers? Yes. Yes, we're going to name our... Actually, that begs the question. Do I have a light cruiser designation? I do have a light cruiser designation. We're going to take a rule the waves strategy. For those of you that don't know, Rule the Waves is a game where you play as a couple of potential countries that are options. In the case of Rule the Waves 2, it's 1900 until like 1950. The technology, though, kind of cuts off. Well, the technology cuts off around 1950. I think technically you can play till like 1970. Rule of Waves 3, which was originally going to be an expansion, but is now actually a separate game. That starts you out potentially. You got a couple of start dates, but I think the earliest was like 1890, and then now it goes until 1970 in terms of technology. You can probably play past 1970 still, probably. But in that game, you can design your ships. Not necessarily in the same way this one is, because in that game you actually do fight the battles directly, depending upon what settings you're using for how the battles are handled. But nonetheless, generally speaking, what you tend to do, particularly once the age of aircraft comes around and aircraft start actually being very deadly, is you design effectively AA cruisers. Or at least I do. And as a result of that, we have a bunch of cruisers that are basically just fitted with tons of like 5-inch dual purpose guns. And that's what we're doing here, basically, is we're effectively designing an AA cruiser. Is it doing AA? Well, technically no, it's doing point defense against missiles, but that's besides the point. But yeah, this is going to be a little while. But we're going to be losing our diplomatic ship. As far as we're concerned, though, we can go ahead and declare these guys as hostile. Because they are. So next time, join us as we lose our second diplomatic ship. Well, it's our first diplomatic ship that's actually lost in combat. But nonetheless. And as we start adjusting our research priorities so that we can have fairly decent point defense capabilities going forwards. I will see you all next time. Quick reminder, if you want to stay up to date with the channel, my go-to place for posting channel updates is my Discord server. You can find a link to that down below in the description. If you want to support the channel financially because you find yourself enjoying this series or any other series on the channel, the two major ways to do that are either via Patreon if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, or Streamlabs if you want to support the channel on a one-time basis. Streamlabs does have an option for turning your support into a monthly thing, but if you want to do monthly, I'd recommend Patreon, just because that's where I would post, or well, one of the rewards of Patreon support is that you can get early access to videos. I say you can get, it's partly because I don't do a great job of updating and posting the links there, but that's just because I don't have supporters over there right now, so, you know, don't really have a reason to try to remember to do that. But, yeah, the idea is that Patreon supporters would get early access. So, yes, like I said, if you want to support the channel financially, those are the two major ways to do it. I will see you all next time, because, as it turns out, we don't need no stinking spoilers. Looks like GL Virginis is probably, well, I say probably, is trying to get ready to put up a fight, because they're doing something around the jump point there. I don't know what, I don't know why, but they're doing something, because they've got a fleet that's just kind of sitting there. And it could just be a case of the AI being a little funky and attempting to go through a jump point that they're incapable of going through because they don't have jump drives. They don't have a ship that can support squadron jumps, and they have not stabilized that side of the jump point. Neither have I, of course, because why would I? I had no plans for the diplomatic ship to come back anytime soon. It wasn't necessarily a do or die situation, but the plan was for them to stay there for a while and at least attempt communications, but those are clearly not going to be happening now. Except for by guns and missiles. Also, it looks like their missiles are kind of old, because it was a nuclear detonation strength of 6. which is not that great. But I'll see you all next time, like I said. Until then, goodbye, farewell, and glory to the Republic.